We had a fairly large portfolio of clients. We had already worked for 3-4 years. And we trusted them to be thoughtful about the risks they were taking and how leveraged they were vis-a-vis their overall financial strength. I think in doing that, we made a few mistakes. Some of them overtraded. They did not have the money to pay us. We now had a set of clients who had misused our trust. For me as a manager, if my teams have failed, I have looked at how I can make that failure as a collective failure. It makes them feel less like a failure. And now they are in a place where they can zoom out and say, okay, what can I learn from it? What's not good is failing on the same thing again and again. That I think is not acceptable.
Does scaling always mean that you have to sacrifice on agility, or is it possible to keep a balance on both?
I think it's necessary to keep a balance on both, because as you're scaling, you're going to encounter situations that you haven't encountered at a smaller scale. Because now you're much larger, you're 2x, 3x, you're growing much faster than you did. In the absence of agility, scaling is very difficult. It will break.
In this era of AI, how do you prepare your team for the future which is predominantly the AI at work?
I think you prepare your team by leading by example. We are always experimenting with new technology, with new ways of working. How can we use newer tools to solve existing problems or processes better?
How did you feel the first reaction, first thought that you got a merger offer from such a big company?
It of course felt good. I actually asked what made you reach out to me and make an offer for Vantage. They said they spoke to 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the India market and asked them for 3 names of companies they should look to acquire. And Vantage was the only name that made all 3.
Wow.
We learn a lot from failure. There's a chance that we may or may not learn from success, because success oftentimes just results in celebration. Everybody thinks they know. When you become a leader, your job is to share with others through your actions, through your words, through how you behave, that it's possible for everyone. And that drives me to want to meet people where they are. I think technology or otherwise, if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to upskill yourself, you face the risk of your career getting compromised significantly. So I don't think it's a technology question. It's a mindset question.
So we have Mr. Arvind Laddha here today. Hi Arvind, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Samyak.
So Arvind, you've led teams at Mercer, you've led teams at JLT, you've sold your venture to JLT. I'm really excited for this podcast, right? As an entrepreneur, I think there's a lot that we can talk about today.
Sure.
How has life been? What are you up to these days? We'll start from scratch. We'll go from like your childhood days to your
Sure.
work. But how are you feeling today?
No, I'm feeling good. This is my first podcast. Thank you for inviting me to it. I hope that you and I both enjoy the experience, and people who decide to listen, watch and enjoy it as much as we enjoy doing it.
100%. So, um, so there's a lot that is coming to my mind, right? But we'll start with your life. Where are you from? What all like you have been through? Where you are today? Would love to understand all of that. So, tell me more about your background, your family background. Where are you coming from? All of that, yeah.
So, I am fortunate to be born in what is traditionally a very large family. My father is the eldest of 12 siblings, comes from a small village in Maharashtra,
Okay.
has grown up in a very different way. My mom herself came from a very large family. And I think when you grow up in a very large family, you learn a lot of things that you may not otherwise learn, right? You learn about how to get along with others, you learn about teams, you learn about leadership, and it's generally just much more fun, right? So I come from entrepreneurial family, right?
Okay.
So they have seen a lot in life, and I've been fortunate to be a part of that journey.
So, when I first met you, Arvind, right, I was so nervous that I'm going to meet a global leader, and perhaps it was very early days of my entrepreneurship journey. I was so nervous, uh, and then I expected that someone from your team would come at the reception and take me to your cabin, but I was so surprised that you yourself had come to take me in, and we had a very good conversation, a very chill types conversation. and then you saw me, you went back and saw me off. uh where is that humility coming from? Where, when you look at your childhood days, your family, or where is that humility coming from, especially when you're leading teams at that level?
Yeah. I think part of that humility comes from what I experienced in my own life, right? Uh, a lot of the elders in my family were themselves very successful. My dad joined Bajaj Auto as a fairly junior officer, right? And was always very thoughtful about how he treated his team.
Mm.
My mom herself is very thoughtful about how she has treated the people who work in our house, right? And that's true for my grandparents, for everybody I have had the occasion to work with. I think part of it comes from there. Part of it also comes from my belief that when you become a leader, right, your job is to share with others through your actions, through your words, through how you behave, that it's
Mm.
possible for everyone,
Mm.
right? And that drives me to want to meet people where they are, right? So maybe when I came to receive you, right, in the back of my mind was, this is the first time Samyak is meeting me. Maybe he's going to be a little nervous. What can I do to sort of make him comfortable, right? And of course, I always believed that I would also learn something from our interactions. I would gain something from you, right? So I think,
Take us through your career, maybe in a brief of where all you have worked, what all
yeah,
industries, what all
yeah.
companies. Yeah.
So I started my education in a school in Pune, right?
Uh,
After my 10th, I joined a college called BMCC College in Pune, where I studied graduation. As I was finishing my commerce graduation, I started working and did cost accountancy and chartered accountancy. So all of my formal professional education actually has been in Pune. Of course, I believe in continuous education, so I have attended a program in IIM Ahmedabad.
mm,
A little over 2.5 years ago, I did a 7-week program with Harvard Business School. I met with some very young 35-year-old young entrepreneurs and some fairly senior
mm,
corporate executives who were leading multiple geographies for their organization,
mm.
right? And then a bunch of other people, right, across industries, etc.
So is it more about the people, or also about the course structure? The reason I'm asking this is, I believe that a lot of people put a lot of value to degrees, right? Or let's say MBA. I understand this is a 7-week course, but my question is coming more from that perspective.
Yeah. So I think learning comes from three things. First and foremost, from your willingness to learn,
Uh,
right? If I believe that I have nothing to learn, then I could go to the most knowledgeable individual, spend endless hours and gain nothing.
mm,
Because I think it first comes from there. Second, it of course comes from the people you end up interacting with, right? Because they have their own individual context, their own journeys that they share with you, right?
yeah.
And there's something to gain. You don't have to experience everything to learn. You can always learn from other people's experience. As far as this particular course is concerned, of course, I did look at the course content, right? What am I going to actually go through in terms of formal training? What are subjects I'm going to be exposed to? Who are the professors I will interact with?
Apart from career or apart from work, who is Arvind as a person? Your hobbies, your interests, right? What do you do outside work?
Beyond work and family, I love to travel. Right.
Okay.
I have been to 6 continents. Antarctica is something I haven't yet gone to, but
You've been to 6 continents.
yes, yeah.
Wow.
North, South America, Asia, Europe, Africa, Australia, Pacific, right? Uh,
Wow.
when I travel, I always like to drive.
Hmm.
That has meant that for the first few minutes of driving in the US, I was completely disoriented,
Uh,
right? But travel is one. And then over the last 8-10 years, I've also picked up running. I now run one full marathon every year,
oh, wow.
right? Which of course requires 6 months of training if you want to be able to do it
Wow.
well and enjoy the run.
It's been 10 years that you've been doing this.
More like the last 3-4 years. I've been running for the last 8-10 years, but the last 3-4 years I've sort of tried to be more thoughtful about how I train myself. And
What motivates you at this age to kind of, and especially last 4 5 years you have been, as you mentioned, right?
yeah. So the first time I picked up training was thanks to my two young sons. Both of them enjoy sports. Both of them were in either football or athletics or some sort. And I used to be involved in their own sort of coaching and pick up and drop and all of that. And I used to, then one day I said, okay, why don't I start running a little? And one day I decided to run a small 10K run. I did that. I enjoyed it. So I then said, okay, let's do 15. 10 was fun. And then I did a half marathon. I think my first half marathon was 2015, 16.
Wow.
And I found I enjoyed that. I didn't, maybe because of the training, because of my body structure, because of various reasons, I did not feel very stretched about being able to do the half marathon. And that's when I decided to do full marathon.
Wow.
Right. So yeah, I picked it up because of my young kids, and now I think it's just some discipline.
Now, like when you manage teams, or teams would be a lesser word, I think, the entire business, right? What's more difficult, cracking through that wall at 42 kilometers of marathon, or managing change while transforming businesses? How do you go?
I think managing change while
Okay.
transferring businesses uh, is a little different from running an individual marathon. An individual marathon is about carrying yourself, right? Managing change and carrying your team is about carrying others, right? And I think that is how I see. There are a lot of similarities, a lot you can learn from both. Both of them require patience, both of them require diligence, both of them require multiple things to come together. But I think that is a big distinction, right? And both of them give me high. Through the course of my career, I've been fortunate that I've had multiple work experiences, right? Building a business, selling it, starting a small venture to leading a reasonably large team within a global organization. I've had the occasion to work across change and across all of that.
Sure, sure, sure. And while so you mentioned about travel, right? And also running. What I see, both of these are usually when I travel, like it's full of introspection. And sometimes for my startup, I get ideas which are like I would not really get sitting in an office, or just focusing, right? Has something come to you while you are running or you're traveling that has led a good change at your any of your businesses? Any incident that you remember?
Yeah, I think there are a few. Some of them basically reinforce what your experiences. I remember I was staying at the Marriott in Cairo, and all the staff were wearing a badge which said the answer is yes. What can I do for you?
Wow.
Right. So it said the answer is yes. What can I do for you? That to me was like customer obsession in action.
Wow.
Right. That sort of is an example that really is very etched in my memory, because when I think of our businesses, when I think of colleagues and clients, right, I encourage myself, I encourage my team to have that philosophy when they are speaking to a client, right?
Wow.
And any reasonable client knows the boundaries of what's possible or not possible, but it's our mindset, right, that sometimes is a limitation, right?
Answer is yes. How can I help you? Wow.
Yeah, right. So,
Good. Great.
so I think that was one. My wife and I were traveling in some remote areas in France, in the Alps. Right. One day we decided to walk away and go up the mountain in the morning, and then we continued to enjoy ourselves and walked into a small inn that old couple were managing only 6, 7 tables.
Okay.
And we went in. I'm a vegetarian, she's a vegetarian. We walked in and asked the chef, right, who was essentially the owner, there's something to eat, and he gave us the menu, and it was all, there's no vegetarian food, as you would imagine, in a remote village in the Alps in France.
Yes.
My wife speaks some broken French, and she asked the gentleman if there was anything else. He was so amazed by the fact that two Indians will come to his inn, speak in French, right? And he went out of his way to really put together a few extremely tasteful dishes, right? It's among the best vegetarian food I have, right? I think I learned from that also how you can be empathetic, right? And how you can just by creating an association with people, right? She spoke French, he was excited, we created a connection, right?
Yeah.
If you can create a connection, how you can actually get unexpected experiences. These are just two examples. There are many others that I have learned from.
And which culture, which country's culture has taught you the most about people management at work?
I think India.
Okay.
I think the diversity we have, the complexity we have, the volume we have, not taking things for granted. I think just traveling across India has taught me a lot. And I've been through various parts. I've been to Kanyakumari, I've been to Srinagar, I've been to various parts in Rajasthan, to Jaisalmer on the border of India, Pakistan. I've been to Guwahati, right? I think just the amount of learning traveling in India has brought is phenomenal. Of course, there is other things that you learn in other parts of the world.
Sure. So we'll move to your venture, right? This is one part which excites me a lot. You started your own venture. Before we talk about your venture, uh, can an entrepreneur ever thrive in a corporate framework? Is that difficult or is that easy?
I think that's possible, right? I myself worked for a little over 5 years uh, at Mercer. Mercer is the world's largest HR consulting firm, part of the Marsh McLennan Group. Mercer is about 26,000 people. I led a fairly large team, couple of hundred people here in India. Marsh McLennan is 90,000 people, right? I asked myself that question when I was going up the lift to the 7th floor of Mercer's office here in Mumbai, that will I be able to succeed? Right? I've always been an entrepreneur. I think if you have the right mindset, it should be possible. Most reasonable organizations allow leaders who are willing to create value, lead teams, grow the business, the freedom to operate. And I think that's reasonable.
Mhm. So you started your venture. Tell me more about that, and then you kind of sold it to
Yes.
JLT.
So
Let
my
us go through that
yeah.
experience.
So my brother and I were both clear, even as we are going through our education, that we wanted to be entrepreneurs and that we wanted to do something in the investment business. Right. We did our academic sort of professional qualifications, but I must admit to you that the cost accounting, chartered accountancy degree was for two reasons. One, of course, to gain knowledge. And second, I was clear that there's no guarantee I will succeed as an entrepreneur.
Huh.
If I try and fail, at least I get a good job.
So it was a
Right.
parachute for you to.
It was a parachute, right? A parachute that also gave me knowledge, right? In 1997, my brother and I started an investment advisory business, right? That was both a stockbroker and a mutual fund advisor. Between 97 and 2003, right, we grew the business reasonably well. We succeeded. We also experienced what I think was one of my largest failures, right, as a professional. And through that, we realized that we have some strengths, right? And we also have the fact that both of us are invested in one business.
Tell me more about that failure that you
Yeah.
venture would want to.
Yeah. So we started in 97, right? We built a really good franchise of clients who trusted us. We built relationships where we also trusted our clients a lot, right? We indexed a lot on giving best advice, good service, etc., etc. And through 98, 99 and 2000, and 2000 you did not even really at your age have any understanding of what the stock market is, but this was just the period around the internet
Yeah.
of things, not the internet of things the way we see it, but internet comes
The .com.
.com, right?
Yeah.
The .com thing. And everything .com was sort of going up in valuation. The stock markets had created significant valuations for various companies. We had a fairly large portfolio of clients. We had already worked for 3-4 years. And we trusted them to be thoughtful about the risks they were taking. and how leveraged they were vis-a-vis their overall financial strength, right? I think in doing that, we made a few mistakes, right? Some of them overtraded, right? And when they overtraded and the market collapsed, they did not have the money to pay us.
Oh.
So we now had a set of clients who had misused our trust and overtraded and run up losses that were beyond their means. But we had another set of clients who had behaved well and to whom we owed money, right? So we had this imbalance, right? And while our asset was there in terms of the debt that these people owed us, right?
Yeah.
They had no ability to pay it, but our liabilities are clear, right? Uh, in that moment in March 2000, right, and all the way for the next couple of years, we really got ourselves together, continued to do good work, right? Ensured we raised the resources to meet every liability that we had on time, right? Our clients were extremely supportive. And that told us one thing: you can trust people, but you must have the processes, right?
Yeah.
To ensure that if they are being, for lack of a better word, irresponsible, you don't expose yourself to them, right? And I think that is something I learned. That also told us a little about who we are, right? And that fed into how we thought about us growing our business and the type of clientele we'll attract and the type of services we'll offer. I must say, however, that while that was one of our biggest sort of setbacks, at no point of time did we not sleep well at night. Did we have ever any doubt that we'll come out?
Oh, wow.
And I think,
That's difficult.
yeah, I think that has been something that has helped us succeed in our life. Every failure has just been another data point to learn from, but has not defined us.
Mhm.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, how was the merger like?
Yeah.
Right? And
So, in about 2003, 2004, my brother and I decided that we should have one more business, and I started Vantage Insurance Brokers. Right. My team and I grew that business to be one of India's most respected and largest employee benefits insurance broking team. Right.
wow.
We had the privilege of working with small startups, small businesses, and some of the largest businesses. Our largest clients were IT services, multinational IT services companies that employed more than 100,000 employees. Had the choice of working with some of the largest and biggest brokers in the world who were already present in India, but decided to work with us for the value we could deliver. Right. So, over a 12-year period, we built a very strong franchise for ourselves. Um, at that point of time, Jardine Lloyd Thompson, which was then the world's fifth largest insurance broking firm, reached out to me and said they have been looking to set up business in India. They had actually set up their business in India, but they wanted to explore if there was a possibility of us bringing Vantage and Jardine Lloyd Thompson's India business together. Right. I felt that we had grown the business to a certain size where, to ensure that we offered our clients value, it would be good to be part of a larger global platform. To ensure that we offered value to our colleagues so that they could build their careers, it would be good if you are part of a larger organization.
Wow.
And then, of course, I must admit that when I met the senior leadership of Jardine Lloyd Thompson, JLT in Latin, I felt this was an organization that was large, global, but was entrepreneurial. The way I describe JLT is that you could feel the blood flow through the veins of the organization. You could feel the heartbeat. So I think those few considerations came together and I decided that I would merge my business with JLT's business in India.
How did you feel? The first reaction, first thought that you got when you uh kind of got to know that you gotten a merger offer from such a big company. What was going in your mind?
It of course felt good, right? It felt good that there was value that was being recognized. I actually asked Jardine Lloyd Thompson that what made you reach out to me and make an offer for Vantage? And I was pleased to hear that they said they spoke to 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the India market and asked them for 3 names of companies they should look to acquire. And Vantage was the only name that made
Wow.
all this, right? So it felt good. We were not building a business to sell the business. We are not building a business just to be on that list. We are building a business that we were going to be proud about. The outcome happened to be what it was. So it did feel good, yeah.
Hmm. And after this merger, right? How did you ensure that you retain that entrepreneur in yourself while working with a corporate giant?
Yeah.
That entrepreneur still stays within you.
I think it happened out of uh, 2 things. One is, of course, I let JLT know that I felt Vantage was successful because Vantage was entrepreneurial in its mindset. And Vantage was not bound down by processes that were unreasonable. Every organization should have processes that protect the organization, that create value, that ensure everything happens in a certain way, predictable way. But no organization should have processes that become bureaucratic and that come in the way of achieving what the business is meant to achieve, which is deliver value for clients and generate profit, sustainable revenues for the business, right?
Yeah.
For the stakeholders, right? So I think in my conversation with JLT, I was fairly honest about why I think we succeeded. I think it was important for JLT to understand that. If they did not understand why we succeeded, right, then the risk that as one entity we would fail was always going to be very high, right? And I thought it was important that we protected against that. The second is, I think that organization itself, like I said, is basically an entrepreneur, was basically an entrepreneurial organization, basically a growth oriented organization. An organization that was willing to take some risks. And failure was not necessarily bad, right? Failure was something to learn from. And I think in a lot of ways, what I thought of business and my philosophy was reflected in that organization.
Sure. And this conversation, like it is making me feel that you've experienced the lowest lows.
Yeah.
And I am sure as an entrepreneur, that's one of the highest highs that
Yes.
you've gone through. When you look back, what do you see as one of the major learnings that you've gotten from your venture one that you implemented in venture two, which led to success?
I think fundamentally, I think that we learn a lot more from failure, right? Or we learn a lot from failure. There's a chance that we may or may not learn from success because success oftentimes just results in celebration. Everybody thinks they know. I think, of course, we learn from both, but we have the chance
Yeah.
to learn from failure. If we ensure we don't get drowned into that feeling of failure, right? Um, when I was building Vantage as an entrepreneur, completely bootstrapped, I learned the value of cash flow management. I learned the value of planning and executing ahead of time, right? Planning ahead of time and executing well. The value of investing in people and their training, right? And ensuring that they understand the larger perspective of why we all are in business. What are we trying to deliver? Because I think that last piece, right? Aligning people with your own goal, right? Ensuring they have as much visibility as possible to what we are all working towards and how each one of them contributes, right? Towards the firm achieving its goal. I think that is very important. It unlocks potential that we cannot unlock through management, through telling people, right? Because if they see how what they do connects to what the organization is trying to achieve, they will find ways to do their work in a way that achieves that goal. Right? So I think I learned a lot in Vantage about that. In JLT, it was about ensuring all of this as well as JLT's own values, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So as we were integrating, how do we ensure that we don't lose focus
Yeah.
of why we are in business, of how we align everybody? All of that, I think, helped in that integration. The fact that we are bringing people along, right? And my own orientation towards people and their careers, and JLT's own orientation towards business and people, I think that helped us make that successful.
And what is more difficult, like building things from scratch with zero resources or very less resources, or scaling an entity, a global entity with very rigid structures?
My personal experience, I think it's more difficult to build businesses with very little capital that is available. I think what entrepreneurs uh, have is the ability to create in a way that they like, agility, ability to pivot, ability to define things and take quick decisions. But the lack of capital can be an impediment, right? In large global organizations, and if I take my own example, right, I joined Mercer as the leader for the India business. Mercer had been in India for more than 20-25 years. Mercer had been around the world for, if I'm not wrong, 60, 70, 80 years, right? Marsh McLennan more than 130, 40, 50 years. They were defined processes,
Yeah.
right? When I came in, I applied my mind to understand what are my boundaries. What is the play field within which I have the freedom to operate, and what is beyond the boundary, right? Where I don't have freedom to take decisions, where I may have to onboard my manager, go up to the global organization for approvals, right? As long as I was comfortable that the authority that I had gave me access and ability to work in a large boundary, right? So I think that and the availability of capital, right, which was there in Mercer, that makes me feel that being a large global organization with some rigidity around processes, but a lot of leverage around access to capital, etc., makes it easier. But the joy of an entrepreneurship is completely different. I can't describe.
So, like, does scaling always mean that you have to sacrifice on agility, or is it possible to keep a balance on both?
I think it's necessary to keep a balance on both, right? Because as you're scaling, you're going to encounter situations that you haven't encountered at a smaller scale, right? Because now you're much larger, you're 2x, 3x, you're growing much faster than you did, right? You're likely to break things that you may not have broken if you're very incremental in your thinking. To fix those as you scale, to fix those as you grow, you need agility, right? In the absence of agility, scaling is very difficult. It will break.
So, we'll now talk about managing teams. We'll talk about people management. And in this era of AI, right? How do you prepare your team for the future, which is predominantly the AI at work? How do you prepare your team for that?
I think you prepare your team by leading by example, right? If I look at my current organization at Lou, right? We are always experimenting with new technology, with new ways of working. How can we use newer tools, right, to solve existing problems or processes better, right? So I think the leadership shows a mind frame to learn, right? That is the number one thing. The second is then to create opportunities for the rest of the team to learn, right? And invite them to learn. And the third is to mandate some training, right? If we know that technology is going to reshape how we work, right? And that means certain people in the organization have to reorient how they work and have to learn new tools. There is no choice, right? They have to learn those new tools. Not everybody might join the bandwagon. I think a majority of people do. A small minority are so committed to the current ways of thinking and ways of working, they may not be able to reorient themselves.
Do you think like technology is going to really wipe them off their their careers?
I think technology or otherwise, if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to upskill yourself, right, you face the risk of your career getting compromised significantly. Right. So I don't think it's a technology question. It's a mindset question. Right. Of course, the current type of technology that is coming, right, is something I don't think the world envisaged even 5 years ago. It will require more learning, more training. It will significantly, potentially significantly alter the way we do a lot of things. but it will also create new opportunities.
Hmm.
So I don't think technology will take away jobs.
And do you think all of us are talking about data-driven decision making? Do you think it is going to overshadow gut instincts, or is there a way to balance both?
I think there's a need to balance both.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The best organizations will in fact balance both. What new technology, new computing power, new ways of understanding data have done, it has helped us make better quality decisions using the same data. We are now able to draw inferences using these tools on the data that we are not able to. We are able to draw correlations, we are not able to. But businesses succeed not by looking at the past. Businesses succeed by looking at the past and saying, what does this mean for the future? Right? How can I reorient myself? How is the market going to reorient itself? How are customers' needs going to change? Right? And that is something that, whether you call it gut, intuition, knowledge, right,
Mm-hmm.
ability to think ahead, that is something I don't expect technology will take away from us. It will make us better, but it will not take away from us.
You've talked a lot about failures, right? How do you ensure that your teams actually embrace such mistakes and bring it out as an opportunity for innovation? I think you talked about
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
Le- let-
So I would say two things, right? In my personal life, when I have failed, uh, people around me, whether it's my wife or others, have really supported me in that, right? In that moment of failure by reinforcing their faith in me, right? So my
Mm,
wife has, of course, been a part of all my journeys and she has been a really strong anchor, right? Similarly, for me as a manager, if my teams have failed, I have looked at how I can make that failure as a collective failure, right? And not their individual failure, right? If they try to do something and failed, right? I don't think it is their failure alone, right? Yeah, they may have been the only person working on that initiative, right?
mm,
Once you make it a collective failure, it takes the stigma away from them. It makes them feel less like a failure. And now they are in a place where they can zoom out and say, okay, what can I learn from it? And you can very much be a part of that learning, right? What's not good is failing on the same thing again and again. That I think is not acceptable, right? But failing in trying to do new things after preparing yourself for success, right? I think that is acceptable.
what I've seen is usually people. So how much as a leader or how much as a manager you make people comfortable about failures because of the society, because of their experiences of different organizations that they've been part of. They are usually they fear a failure a lot, and because of that, they're not able to take enough risk, especially when it's needed. So, as a leader, you are actually like providing enough opportunities to experiment, fails,
Absolutely.
get success. What do you do in such cases where people are not ready for it?
I think in such cases, the first thing to do is to talk of your own failures. As a leader of my teams, I have always shared my own failures. Right. I think it gives space for others to fail, to be comfortable with failure. Right. I don't think of myself as a leader uh, who signifies success alone. I think I signify success and failures, and I share my failures with them. I share about my failures with them. In that open space for everyone to fail. But like I said, fail while preparing and doing everything you can to ensure you succeed. Right.
Mm,
Not what I call lazy failure. Lazy failure is you just not prepare yourself, thought you would get lucky. That's unacceptable.
mhm. And what do you think are the like from a management standpoint, or not really management standpoint, but as a manager, right? Maybe you're leading a team or you're leading the entire organization. Uh, what are the most important critical points, especially when you're preparing a workforce for the future, right? And today's time, you really need a step growth, not really a linear growth. What qualities should a manager possess in such a transformation?
I think first and foremost is very strong on communications.
Hmm.
Right. To be able to share your goals that you have for yourself, for the team, and your expectations from others. Right. Help the team to think about how they can achieve their goals. So make their goals more achievable, right? Not by reducing the volume of aspiration or goals, but by helping them build a plan, right? Hold them accountable to put together a road to success, right? A detailed road to success, and hold them accountable to ensure that they are delivering on that in terms of all the effort and action that are required. And then they are conscious of what's happening. So communication,
Yeah.
holding them accountable while supporting them, right? And then of course some of the other things that we spoke about, right? Learning, give them the opportunity to fail, celebrate success, be transparent in communication, make share with them what is possible and what is not, right? So if we know that business is going to be negatively impacted by certain external forces, don't sugarcoat it. Tell them it's going to happen and tell them
Yeah.
how you are preparing for it, what it means for them and what it means for you.
Yeah.
I think I would just say one more thing. Managers and businesses take disproportionate effort in hiring people. They hire people who they think are smart people, right? If you put in so much effort to hire smart people, why would you not empower them? Why would you not trust them? If you are going to decide as a manager what the team is going to do, then you might as well take average people who will merely execute them. So if you put in effort to pay top dollar, get smart people, give them the freedom, right? And put checks and balances.
Why do you think most managers fail in aligning their personal goals with their team goals? What's the secret sauce to do that?
I mean, I think inherently there is a fear that people will see your personal goals as at odds with your team goals. But I think it's not that. Everybody is working towards building a successful career. No subordinate thinks that his manager comes to work only to make them successful. The manager comes to work to make himself successful, to ensure he has growth in himself, right? As long as we can create a space where everybody can talk to each other like reasonable adults, I think there is no problem. Then there is no question of not being able to share your personal goals. I don't think my teams ever doubt about what I was trying to achieve for myself, right? I, in fact, shared with them that next year this is what I hope to do, and this is the outcome I expect to get for myself, and how they could help. And I actually asked them what they were hoping to achieve, what they were going to do, and how I could help them. So if we have a reasonable, transparent, honest conversation like adults, I don't think there's a problem.
Is it insecurity that holds them back? Like talking
That-
about their personal goals with the
I think,
teams?
I think it is insecurity. Just that fear that if I tell them about what I am trying to achieve, they may not be aligned. On the contrary, I think if you tell them what you are trying to achieve, they will be aligned with it.
Mm-hmm. So it's at the end maybe more about empathy, communication, the transparency. I think
Yeah.
that's the piece,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I think it's more about that. I think it's more about just building a relationship of trust and treating adults like adults, right? And then, of course, you will find some people who are outliers who don't believe in your leadership, who don't feel like they want to be a part of the team. There are ways to sort of find a way to address them. Or
I've read your views on empathy and economics, right? Or let's say empathy and profits,
yeah.
right? Is that some science? Is that some art? Or more importantly, is that even possible?
Oh, absolutely, I think it's possible. When you're leading large teams, in the absence of empathy,
Hmm.
right, there is no chance of success, right? And empathy basically here means being able to carry everybody along, right? Being able to relate with them where they are. I think this also goes back to our conversation on sustainability and profits, right? Empathy is about meeting the person where he is,
Hmm.
whether it's your colleague, whether it's your client, whether it's your vendor partner, right? If you connect with them, and very early in the conversation, you spoke about me walking out to
Right.
receive you and talk to you, it's about meeting you where you are. That is empathy. Empathy is not very complex, right? But doing that ensures alignment. So if you can use empathy for alignment, I think actually you will be more economically successful than otherwise. So I think empathy will accelerate economic success rather than come at the cost of economic success.
Wow. Arvind, in this last segment, we call it decoding mindset, right? So we are going to decode your mindset. Take us through your mindset in the past, let's say to whatever time you can recall, particularly last 8, 10 years, 5 years, and now moving forward, the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. How do you visualize your mindset kind of framing What are the key incidents, key moments which define that?
So yeah, 5, 10, 15 years, maybe I'll start by relating a incident when I was in college, right? I was
Okay.
playing in a cricket tournament. I was standing at long off. There was another fielder at mid off. The match was poised in a fairly, sort of competitive way. And the batsman hit a shot, uh, skied one that seemed like it would land between long off and mid off. For a fraction of a moment, I felt if I go for this
Okay.
and miss it, I look like an idiot. This ball is going to land far enough from me for me to be able to explain why I did not attempt it. Right.
You had that fear.
That fear that, okay, if I try and fail, I'll look like an
Fear of
idiot.
judgment, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think that has been etched in my memory. That life is about taking chances. Right.
yeah.
So I do go back every once in a while and think of that incident and I relate and share that incident because in that one very innocuous, I never expected to learn something while playing a cricket match in college. I learned something that I think has remained very vividly etched in my memory. Right. Then there is, through my failures, I have learned about resilience, about self confidence. Right. All of this has sort of contributed in shaping how I think. I think working in a large global organization has taught me about the need to plan well in advance. Right. Because as a startup, you can decide today and execute tomorrow. Working in a large global organization, you can plan much ahead. In a startup environment as well, if you start planning ahead, you can anticipate challenges better. You're just prepared for the unexpected better. Right. So I've learned about that. I now work in Loop. The founder of Loop is a 29, 30-year-old with two friends. They are all between 30 and 32, 33. They are on a mission to make a difference to people who we work with in terms of our clients, right? Our North Star is to make a meaningful difference in the longevity and health of our clients, of our customers. That is our North Star. That a North Star is something that you work towards forever, right? It's not 1 year goal, 2 year. That is our North Star. And we have backing from some of people who I consider the most intelligent in the world, right? From Khosla Ventures, from General Catalyst, Optum Ventures of United Healthcare, right? Elevation Partners, Y Combinator. And also people who understand healthcare and health insurance better than most others. So I must give credit to the founders of Loop, Mayank, Amrit and Ryan, to be able to inspire trust from some of the most intelligent people. We've raised $50 million of capital. That's not small for such a young field. My goal in Loop or my current sort of run in Loop is how do I bring my experience, expertise together with their energy, with the capital that people have trusted us in. And together, these 3, 4 pillars, how do we make Loop Health a distinctively different provider of both health insurance and healthcare in India, right? I think I'm going to be consumed with that. As a part of that, of course, it's an opportunity to make a difference in how health insurance and healthcare operate in India, right? How can we learn from other markets? How can we learn from the investors? How can we learn from our clients, right? I think innovation is something that is closely associated with startups. We are innovating all the while. But I think innovation happens more by listening to what customers are saying, more by the things that happen in your organization. A very small, insignificant number of people can innovate out of thin air. Innovation for the rest of us, if we just listen a little better, that is good enough. We don't have to be Elon Musk or Steve Jobs and others, right? So I think that's where my head is.
Sure. Just wrapping this up with your final comments on the people leaders who are watching this. Uh, we are usually focusing on short term goals, short term outputs. How do we ensure that you leave a legacy when your tenure ends? With that, we'll close it
Yeah.
off.
I think first is to define what you mean by legacy. For some people, legacy is building a large institution. For others, legacy is that I worked with 10 people and they are now in different organizations, all of them doing well. Right. So, what is legacy for you? For others, it might be about doing something social. Right. For managers, it's about once you've defined what legacy is, then to have, like I said earlier in the conversation, reasonable adult like conversations with the team, with the people who are working with you. And the team is not just your colleagues. The team is your client, the team is your vendor partners,
Every stakeholder.
every
Yeah.
stakeholder, right? how can you share with them in an honest, transparent way, right? What you are aspiring for and how they can help you and how you can help them, right? I think people actually quite like the opportunity to help others, right? Of
Wow.
course, if they think they're going to be taken advantage of, then that's another. But I think that is my thing. So as a manager, of course, share your personal ambition with your team. Have a genuine interest in understanding their personal ambition and what they think you can do for them to help them realize their ambition, while they are also helping you realize the company's goal. Right? I have had the pleasure of working with various teams. I am glad to say that especially in Vantage, attrition was very, very low. And today, some of my colleagues are in leadership positions in various organizations. Right? I would like to believe that Vantage and I made a small contribution, and then they worked hard, and their own current organizations have given them a platform to continue to succeed. Right? So that gives me a lot of satisfaction. They're not part of my current team. They're part of sometimes competing businesses, but that they can continue to succeed and make a difference in those businesses gives me a lot of satisfaction.
So, Arvind, I was reading that you're also associated with uh, initiatives which are in the not-for-profit segment, right? So, like 14 Trees Foundation, like NFBN Jagrahi School, that's for blind girls. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
What all that is about?
So I think so. Two things, right? I personally and uh, me and my family, both the nucleus as well as the larger family. I think we believe that through external and internal factors, we are in a very fortunate place. Internal in the sense of hard work, dedication, just honesty of purpose. External in terms of being at the right place at the right time, being lucky, having the support of various people. We are at a place where we now have the opportunity to be a leverage for others, right? Whether it is through maybe financial resources, maybe through our own experiences that we can share with others, through all of this and through being part of a community, right? My brother sort of has been at the forefront in our family in initiatives like these. 14 Trees is an initiative started by a tech entrepreneur. He called it 14 Trees because for all the carbon dioxide that we release through a lifetime, it is equal to what 14 trees can then convert into oxygen, right? So he said, okay, in one lifetime, if you plant 14 trees, each individual plants 14 trees, he will have left no carbon dioxide footprint, right? And technically, what that means.
Wow.
My brother has been closely associated with that. 14 Trees Foundation was started, I think, about 10 years ago by Praveen Bhagwat with the intent of reforesting large barren lands, right? Lands where there were dense forests, maybe 50, 100, 200 years ago. He started with a small plot of land of 20 acres. He tells me he learned how difficult it is to buy land in rural India. Having bought the land, he had to build trust in the community, right? We must be aware that rural folks, villagers don't always take urban folks for granted. They have been misled, profiteered from, and he was very clear that he wanted to give back to that community where he was. So, for quite a few years, actually, he could make very little progress because the community in around his land did not trust him, would come in the way and disrupt what he was. Today, he has more than 1,000 acres of land under the management, and more organizations want him to actually expand, grow, and reforest barren lands.
Wow.
As a family, we have contributed to what we call the family and friends group for our family. More than 100 saplings have been planted, more keep getting planted, and
Wow.
hopefully they will become a large sort of clump of trees in a large reforested area, right? So that is about 14 trees, right? About this Jagruti School for Blind. Through the course of our business, we got introduced to a couple, right?
Okay.
Actually came to us for some investment advice for their own small portfolio. They were both blind. At least their vision was severely impaired, right? But this couple was very committed to doing something for other blind people. They were committed to being a platform to create opportunities for other people who are suffering from similar conditions. And they started Jagruti School for Blind. It's a school for blind girls, typically from the area around Alandi near Pune, the villages and smaller towns. There they have a school, they have a campus hostel. They also have vocational training that sort of equips the girls to go back into society, live an independent, financially independent life and a generally independent life. As a family, we've been contributing to that school regularly. They get contributions from various large corporates, right? It gives us great joy to see how we are able to make a small difference, but a meaningful difference to whether the environment or to others.
So, so when you say joy, right? Let's define that. What do you mean by joy in this case?
I think joy is uh, just the knowledge of the fact that we could potentially have made a difference and a lifetime of difference in somebody else's life, right? Not a difference for one day, 1 month, 1 year. Like if I think of Jagruti School for Blind, for the blind girls, one blind girl from one village comes to Jagruti School, learns, becomes financially independent, right? And now every generation, every member in her family, current family, and in the generations after her will have access to opportunities they may not have had otherwise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She may become somebody that other girls learn from in her community. And they may come, and they don't always have to be other blind girls. They don't even have to be girls with disability. They don't even have to be girls. They could just be other people who see this girl and how she has actually not let things come in her way and created opportunities for herself. So just the fact that we might be able to do similarly in 14 trees, right? The fact that in 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years, we may have made a small contribution to the reforestation of some barren lands in our country, right? It gives, I think, I won't say there's a desire to leave a legacy, but the fact that we have an opportunity to leave a legacy, right, and we make use of that opportunity, that I would say gives us joy.
What I've observed is we Indians, I think we have that innate, maybe because of the culture, because of the society that we've been brought up into, we have that innate uh, drive to be involved in giving back.
Yes.
When it comes to businesses, right? Government has mandated CSR, all of that, and usually and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've not seen that intent. As individuals, we have that intent. I've not seen that intent in businesses. Would that be correct to say?
I won't say that that's necessarily true for all businesses, but I know that that's true for a significant percentage of businesses. Now, whether it's a significant majority or a significant minority of businesses, very difficult to pinpoint. But Indians, like people around the world, are innovative. The government might mandate something, and we will find a way to comply with the regulation, but not with the spirit of it.
Yeah.
And I think there are enough examples of that. We do, in my own life, I will say that I have seen enough individuals and businesses that have the spirit of giving, the spirit of making a difference that I have learned from. But yes, there's certainly room for a lot more. Right?
Do you see? So there's a direct impact of any CSR activity that you do. Do you see any indirect impact on the team, on the people of the organization who are involved firsthand into such activities? Do you see that's important?
I think that's very important. I think if I just and there are multiple examples that come to my mind, but I'll just take an example of something that we did in my previous organization when I was working at Mercer or at Marsh McLennan, right? One of Marsh McLennan's credos is being there in the moments that matter, right? And at MMC, there are various initiatives on the CSR side that are not financial initiatives, but that are initiatives that allow colleagues to come together as a group,
Yeah.
right? And contribute to society, whether it is about cleaning the environment, right? It could be rivers, it could be beaches, it could be ponds, whether it's about contributing to building schools, right? And it could be very small. It could be about painting, like
Wow.
a bunch of our colleagues went to a school near Noida,
Uh,
right? A government school near Noida, and spent a day painting that school, right? Along with children in that school, right? So that has an impact on colleagues. It gives them an opportunity to come together as a team. It also reflects that this organization is more than just about making the last dollar of profit, the last rupee of profit. That there is a serious desire to give back to society, right? Uh, there are initiatives like this in Loop Health. We intend to take up initiatives that should make a difference in the health of people. We are ideating. But for example, we could, and we will certainly in the course to come, look at how can we use health as a lever to make a difference in the communities that we operate in, right? Can we organize health checkup camps for people who don't have access to good quality health, right? We have on our own payroll 24 doctors, right? That are available to our clients, right? For anything that they need. Can some of these doctors go back into the communities along with other colleagues, right? And be available for maybe a day or half a day, right? To people in that community who don't otherwise have access to well qualified doctors, right?
what will it do to the people or to the team?
I
Right?
think it motivates the team in a very big way, right? To be for them to go to, let's say, for lack of better word, slum,
Hmm.
right? And be available to a doctor, to a person who may not have known where to get good quality advice, to get him medical advice and to see how that joy, right? And I think positive energy is very easy to spread, right? If you go into the community,
Yeah.
you make a contribution and somebody thanks you for it. I think that's a very different time. Money cannot give that. I think it helps the team a lot.
I've seen organization businesses actually talking a lot about sustainability these days, right? Can sustainability really drive profits, or is it just a good PR for businesses?
I don't think sustainability is the opposite of profits,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think there is space for both, right? Um, how much an organization can invest in sustainability, an investment in sustainability is not just necessarily financial investment, but like I said, if employees can contribute, for example, if employees of the organization go and teach in a school, help sort of and develop the environment, clean the environment around it, right? Give medical advice to people who don't have opportunities to get good quality medical advice, right? That is also sustainability. Sustainability is about being able to make a difference in the communities we are in. In fact, I think that, and like we were discussing, in fact, I think some investment in sustainability actually is a good motivator to the people. Of course, it also helps in your brand.
Yeah.
Corporates will see you as interested in the community that all of them, you and those corporates work in, rather than with only one focus of profit. I don't think there is any doubt in anybody's mind about why organizations, right, for profit organizations, right, they are for profit organizations, right? So profitability is the number one matrix.
Yeah.
Right. In the absence of profitability, there's no sustainability for that organization itself. Right? But that's how I think it.
Wow. Wow. I think it has been great, Arvind, and this podcast. I think we've done a mini MBA on how to really run global businesses and global teams. Thanks a lot. It was
Samyak, thanks
really a
for
pleasure.
inviting me. It was a pleasure to have this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.